Are you a loyal Godfather fan? Then you've come to the right place. This is Take the Cannoli, the Godfather podcast. Here we talk about everything Godfather, from the movies to the effect on our culture. Still going strong 50 years later.
You know, for you, it's The Godfather.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're thinking about this movie, what better way to revisit it than through its most memorable lines, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've given us quite a lineup of quotes here to unpack. I got to say, just looking at this list, I'm already hearing that, iconic theme music in my head.
It's remarkable how The Godfather manages to be both a gripping crime saga, but also a meditation on family and loyalty and the American dream, all wrapped up in, well, some of the most quotable dialogue ever written.
Absolutely. Let's be honest. I mean, who hasn't found themselves using a Godfather quote in everyday conversation, right?
But to really appreciate how brilliant these lines are, I think we really need to dig into them a bit, understand the context, the nuances. These lines work on so many levels, and we're going to unpack all of that. We're going to start with quote number 20 on your list, work our way to the top. Hopefully, by the end of this, we'll all understand why these words have resonated with audiences for decades. What do you think? Are you ready to dive in?
Let's do it. Always ready for a good trip back to the world of the Corleones.
All right, so kicking us off at number 20, we have Sonny Corleone. Of course, he's never one to mince words, is he? You got to get him close like this, and bada bang, you blow their brains all over your nice Ivy League suit. Even in what seems like a throwaway line like that, I think we get a glimpse into, the core of Sonny's character. The casual way he describes such a brutal act, that bada bing almost makes it sound like a punchline. It really highlights that casual brutality that's second nature to him.
It's like, violence is just another tool in his toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's that little jab at the end about the Ivy League suit, which always makes me chuckle.
No, right. It's more than just a jab, though. I think it's really indicative of that deep-seated resentment that Sonny harbors toward Michael's education and aspirations, outside the family business. That single phrase really speaks volumes about their complex relationship and foreshadows the conflicts to come.
Amazing how much the writers packed into a single line. Speaking of lines that pack a punch, let's move on to number 19. What are you worried about? If I wanted to kill you, you'd be dead already. Leave it to Soloso to deliver a threat with such chilling politeness.
See, that's the genius of this line. It's not even a boast. It's a statement of fact. Soloso doesn't need to make empty threats because, well, his reputation precedes him. He's reminding Tom Hagen, and by extension, us, the audience, that in this world that they live in, violence isn't just a possibility. It's a constant shadow lurking around every corner.
It's a power move disguised as reassurance. Now, that's a skill you don't learn in business school. Which, speaking of, brings us to number 18, another Soloso classic. I don't like violence, I'm a businessman. Blood is a big expense.
Pure Machiavellian brilliance. Soloso understands that by framing himself as the reasonable one, the pragmatic one, it makes his demands more palatable. He knows that appearing to abhor violence makes him all the more persuasive when he unleashes it.
Talk about a wolf in sheep's clothing. Okay, this next one always catches me off guard. Coming in at number 17, it's Luca Brasi, with that famously strained delivery, wishing for Connie. I hope that their first child be a masculine child.
It's almost comical, isn't it, hearing such a hardened enforcer express such a traditional sentiment. But it's also a stark reminder that, this is the 1940s. This is a time when patriarchal values were very deeply ingrained in society, even within the world of organized crime.
Yeah, it really highlights how The Godfather operates on multiple levels. It's a gangster movie, yes, but it's also a reflection of the social and cultural norms of its time.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to number 16, a line that I'm sure resonated with plenty of couples back in the 70s. Don't ask me about my business, Kay.
Become the quintessential line of guarded masculinity, hasn't it? But what makes it so compelling is Michael's delivery. He's not yelling, he's firm, controlled, but beneath that carefully constructed facade, you see the cracks beginning to form.
And Kay sees them too, which is what makes this line so heartbreaking. Because she knows she's being shut out, but she also understands the danger of prying too deep. It's a perfect example of how The Godfather uses seemingly simple lines of dialogue to really build that tension, foreshadow the tragic events that are to come.
Precisely. And speaking of tension, let's move on to a quote that I think cuts to the heart of the film's central conflict. Number 15. A man who doesn't spend time with his family can never be a real man, uttered by the Don himself.
It's a fascinating contradiction, isn't it?
Mhm.
You had a ruthless mob boss, a man who built his empire on violence, advocating for the importance of family. It forces us to really confront the complexity of these characters, to acknowledge that even those who commit, truly terrible acts can still hold on to certain values.
And it's not just what he says, it's how he says it. There's an underlying current of menace in his voice. A reminder that even in his generosity, Don Corleone is not a man to be trifled with. He's reminding Johnny Fontaine that kindness should never be mistaken for weakness.
Which brings us to another Don Corleone gem, full of tough love. Number 14. You can act like a man. What's the matter with you? Is this how you turned out? A Hollywood Finocchio that cries like a woman? Oh, what can I do? What can I do?
Well, this particular piece of advice might need some updating for a modern audience, but it reveals a great deal about Vito's worldview. He comes from a generation that valued strength, stoicism, and self-reliance, particularly when it came to men. He sees Johnny's emotional outburst as a sign of weakness, a betrayal of the very qualities he holds dear.
It inadvertently lays the groundwork for Michael's transformation too, doesn't it? He goes from the quiet war hero son who wants nothing to do with the family business to the cold, calculating Don, who ultimately embraces his father's legacy, albeit in his own way. And speaking of Michael, this next line sends chills down my spine every time. Number 13. Where's Michael?
3 simple words spoken by a bedridden Don Vito. And yet they carry the weight of the entire film. That's the moment you realize just how high the stakes have become and how Michael's involvement will change everything.
Also a testament to Marlon Brando's just incredible performance. The fact that he can convey so much with just a few raspy words. I mean, there's a reason that performance is considered legendary. Okay, from a whisper to a roar, let's move on to number 12, a line that's practically synonymous with mob movies. We go to the mattresses.
Leave it to Sonny to escalate things. This line is pure classic gangster. It's a callback to all those gritty crime dramas that came before. But it also reveals how quickly the stakes can shift in this world. One minute they're discussing business, the next they're preparing for all-out war.
And notice how casually Sonny throws it out there, too. It's just another part of doing business for him, which makes it all the more terrifying, right? This isn't a game, Tim. It's a way of life.
A way of life built on a foundation of violence. And as we'll see with our next quote, sometimes that violence spills out from the shadows and into the open with devastating consequences. But first, a quick break. We'll be right back with more of your favorite Godfather quotes and the fascinating stories behind them.
Welcome back.
Oh, okay.
I'm ready to jump back into the lion's den of these incredible lines. Number 11 on our list. You don't even think to call me Godfather. Instead, you come into my house on the day my daughter's to be married and you ask me to do murder for money.
This scene with Bonacera, it's a masterclass in establishing both the character but also the rules of this world. Don Corleone is laying down the law, but he's schooling Bonacera a little bit in the proper way to approach a man of his stature. It's not just about the request. It's about respect, tradition, and understanding that delicate balance of power.
He's offended by the lack of respect as much as the request itself.
Right.
It's my daughter's wedding day.
Yeah.
I mean, it perfectly illustrates, I think, the Don's priorities, family above all else.
And yet, there's this underlying tension because by agreeing to help Bonacera, he's setting in motion this chain of events that will ultimately drag his own son into this very dangerous world. Talk about foreshadowing.
It gives me chills just thinking about it. Okay. This next quote, I think, builds on that sense of foreshadowing. And if by chance an honest man like yourself should make enemies, then they would become my enemies, and then they will fear you. Number 10.
Don Corleone, master of both charm and veiled threat. He's offering Bonacera a solution, protection, right? But it comes at a price. Bonacera is now bound to the Don. His fate's now intertwined with the Corleone family.
Bought himself some peace, but at what cost? It's a question that echoes throughout the entire film. Now, this next one is fascinating because, well, it's not technically in the film. Revenge is a dish best served cold.
Number 9 on your list. And you're right, despite its, popularity as a Godfather quote, it's actually from the novel. It just goes to show the enduring power of Pruzo's writing.
Yeah.
And how seamlessly it blends with the film's dialogue.
It's as if the quote itself embodies that simmering sense of, calculated retribution that permeates the story. You might even say it's more powerful because it's implied rather than stated so directly. My father assured him that either his brains or his signature would be on the contract. Number 8.
Delivered by Michael at At Connie's wedding, no less. Talk about your family dinner table conversations. But this seemingly offhand remark, really, it reveals the true nature of the Corleone family's, influence.
It's chilling.
Yeah.
Because he's talking about a brutal act with such nonchalance, as if it's just business as usual. Earlier we were talking about how The Godfather reflects the social norms of its time. This quote, I think, takes it a step further, and it shows how easily those norms can be twisted by, power and influence.
Yeah. It also marks a turning point for Michael. He starts the film wanting nothing to do with the family business. And here he is casually recounting a story of intimidation and violence as if he were discussing the weather.
It's subtle, but it perfectly sets up his transformation into the new Don. Okay, number 7 brings us back to Vito with a true gem. A friend should always underestimate your virtues, and an enemy overestimate your faults.
This is vintage Don Corleone. Strategic, insightful, and a little bit terrifying. He understands that perception is just as important as reality. Maybe even more so.
It's like Machiavelli in a pinstripe suit. You almost have to admire the cunning, even if you don't necessarily agree with the methods.
That complexity is what makes The Godfather so endlessly fascinating, right? These aren't one-dimensional gangsters. They're complex individuals with their own, code of ethics, however skewed it may seem to us. Only don't tell me that you're innocent, because it insults my intelligence, and it makes me very angry. Number 6.
I go to Carlo, right. Right before, let's just say it's not a happy ending for Carlo.
That whole line, it's all about power dynamics. Michael has already decided Carlo's fate. He's just toying with him at this point. But that line about insulting his intelligence, it's classic.
And it just highlights that chilling calm that Al Pacino brings to the role. He's far scarier when he's in control, delivering those threats with such icy precision. Speaking of memorable deliveries, how about number 5? Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, Saturday.
Yes. Michael's romantic attempt to teach Apollonia English. Not your typical, love scene, but it speaks volumes about his desire for a different life.
Yeah, you really see those glimmers of the man that he could have been if things were different, which of course makes the tragedy that follows all the more heartbreaking.
It's a classic Godfather trope, isn't it? Those fleeting moments of happiness and innocence that are inevitably shattered by the brutal realities of their world.
Speaking of which, let's move on to number 4, a quote that I think really gets at the complexities of family and loyalty in the world of The Godfather. Fredo, you're my oldie brother and I love you, but don't ever take sides with anyone against the family again, ever.
Michael can forgive a lot, but betrayal, that's where he draws the line. It's a reminder that in this world, family comes first, but it's a dangerous double-edged sword.
The way he delivers that line sends shivers down my spine.
Oh, yeah.
You can hear the love, but it's laced with this underlying threat. It's impossible to ignore. Now, this next quote needs no introduction. Number 3. Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes. Even saying it out loud gives me chills.
Become shorthand for mafia justice, hasn't it? The beauty of this line, I think, lies not in what is said, but in what is left unsaid. It's the power of suggestion, that chilling understanding that some things are they're better left to the imagination.
It's a masterclass in using language to just create a sense of dread and unease. And then there's the juxtaposition of this brutal act with, cannoli. Leave the gun. Take the cannoli. Number 2, the one and only Clemenza.
Only in the world of The Godfather can you go from a cold-blooded murder to a discussion about cannoli in the space of a single breath. It's that blend of humor and brutality that makes this film so compelling.
And the cannoli. It's not just a sweet treat. It represents that other life, that world of normalcy that these characters are constantly trying to hold on to, even as they're, up to their elbows in blood.
You've hit on something crucial there, that single line. Leave the gun. Take the cannoli. It perfectly encapsulates the duality at the heart of The Godfather. It's both a celebration of life and a chilling reminder of death, often within the same scene, which leads us perfectly to our final quote, the one that tops your list.
I mean, it's the quote that launched 1,000 memes, right? Not going to make him an offer he can't refuse. It's practically synonymous with The Godfather itself at this point.
It's a line that's so simple, so direct, yet incredibly loaded with subtext. It perfectly encapsulates Don Corleone's power, his influence and that implicit threat that underpins his every word.
And the way Marlon Brando delivers it, too, that quiet intensity, that subtle shift in his voice, it's both charming and terrifying at the same time.
Exactly. He doesn't need to raise his voice, doesn't need to make a scene. He understands that true power lies in restraint, in the unspoken understanding that when Don Corleone makes you an offer, well, you just don't say no.
No wonder this line has, transcended the film itself and become a part of our everyday lexicon. But what I think is so fascinating is how this seemingly simple statement about making an offer speaks to, I think, the film's larger themes, themes of power, ambition, the substantive nature of corruption.
On the surface, it's a line about a movie mogul and a band leader, right? But on a deeper level, I think it's really about the compromises that we make, that the deals we strike, the choices that we're all faced with when we're confronted with that kind of power, whether it's in the world of organized crime or the boardroom of a Fortune 500 company.
I got to say, I've really enjoyed revisiting these quotes with you today. Peeling back the layers like this, I mean, it's amazing how much richer my understanding of The Godfather has become.
Well, it's a testament to the film's just enduring power. The Godfather, it isn't just a gangster movie. It's really a timeless exploration of family, loyalty, ambition, the seductive allure of power. It's a film that stays with you long after the credits roll. It prompts you to question your own moral compass and the choices that you make in your own life.
Well said. And for you, dear listener, I hope this deep dive has given you a renewed appreciation for just the brilliance of The Godfather's dialogue and the way it elevates, I think, just a crime saga into a true American epic. It's something special.
And remember, this is just the beginning. Don't be afraid to revisit the film with fresh eyes, maybe dive deeper into the book itself, or even explore the countless interpretations and analyses that continue to surround this cinematic masterpiece. Because just like a good cannoli, The Godfather is best savored slowly, allowing each layer of flavor to reveal itself in its own time.
Thanks for listening to Take the Cannoli, the Godfather podcast with Lou Bortone. Join us again next time. If you know what's good for you. Capiche?